for joining us on this special occasion. We consider this moment special because it marks the first time we conduct an interview of this nature. Typically, we host bands or solo artists. We are celebrating the debut of a trilogy by Nightwish after 27 years. This band is presenting us with the first saga, so to speak. And before we begin, I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Okay, well, first of all, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm James Shearman, and I'm a arranger, orchestrator, conductor. I've worked mostly in the world of film, conducting and orchestrating, arranging film soundtracks. But occasionally I work in rock and pop. I studied at the Royal Academy of Music in London, where I was a composition and conducting student. And since I graduated, which was a very long time ago now, I've been very lucky that I've worked on over 120 movies and worked with various pop and rock artists, including Nightwish.
Exactly, and I'm aware that you have not only collaborated with Nightwish, but have also conducted and orchestrated some of the most remarkable film scores, like Once Upon a Forest, Tomb Raider, Thor, Eragon, my favorite movie, Pearl Harbor, and of course Imaginarium, just to name a few. And since Imaginarium is part of the list, let us discuss this remarkable experience with such an extraordinary and talented band called Nightwish. Like, were you a fan of Nightwish prior to beginning your work with them? Were you a fan of heavy metal before?
That's a very good question. And no, I really didn't know very much about heavy metal. I suppose, I'd heard of bands like Metallica, and heard the occasional track because, goodness, was quite a few years back now that they recorded with a symphony orchestra. So that was kind of interesting to me. But no, I hadn't heard of Nightwish prior to working with them. It was actually Pip Williams that called me back in, would have been probably around 2003. And asked if I was available. I'd worked with Pip on a couple of projects for pop bands, conducting the orchestra for him, and we sort of hit it off straight away. He's such a wonderful character, Pip. I absolutely adore him, and a terrific arranger. And I liked working with him very much. And he called me one day and said, "Look, I'm going to be writing the arrangements for this new metal band called Nightwish. And I'd love you to conduct them." So of course I said yes, but I had no idea what to expect. I've always considered myself an eclectic musician. I love songs, I love melodies as much as I love a great symphony. So I've always considered myself eclectic, versatile, very flexible, being able to go from one genre to another. And actually, working with Nightwish, it was very apparent to me very quickly that here was a band that was doing something that I kind of not heard before. They had some great ingredients in their music, great tunes, really interesting chord sequences that weren't the standard sort of pop rock chord sequences. They took unexpected twists and turns. And it was all very melodic, very theatrical, and sort of almost sort of operatic, really, in its scope. So all that stuff, and yes, there was a heavy rock band and stuff on at the forefront of this sound of theirs, but there was this big lush orchestra and choirs, and I immediately thought, this is brilliant stuff, and we sort of hit it off straight away, really.
Exactly, and your initial collaboration with Nightwish occurred in 2004 on what is often regarded as maybe the most significant album, the most remarkable one according to fans. Like, do you have any recollections from your initial days working with them?
Yes, I do. Actually, I can remember the first day of recording very well. We recorded it at a studio called CTS Studios in Wembley here in London, and which is no longer there actually. But it was yes, it would have been, like I say, about around 2003, something like that, that we actually started recording. You know, I sort of repeat myself. I didn't know what to expect. But I loved it immediately, their genre and their style of music. I suppose, bearing in mind I was quite young at the time and I hadn't long left the Royal Academy of Music in London. I was a sort of young graduate working in mostly writing jingles. Actually, I was a sort of very young composer working in TV jingles and arranging for pop bands and stuff like that, and just starting to work in film. And I'd never worked with anyone like Nightwish, and I seem to remember, you know, they were very relaxed actually, the guys, because once they could see that their work was in safe hands. Pip was in the control room with Tuomas sort of producing the orchestral sessions. I was out on the studio floor conducting the orchestra, and within an hour they could see that, you know, that he had a great team. Tuomas could spot that he had a great team, and they sort of just left us to get on with it really, and they totally relaxed. And I seem to remember sort of, you know, bottles of whiskey coming out, which I'd never seen before in a recording session. But they were very rock and roll back then. They were all young, of course, and they were just enjoying themselves. And I think, like many people that come to London to record with orchestras, I think they were really impressed with the professionalism and the standard of sight reading and playing by our London studio session musicians. They're really quite incredible, and I think they were blown away by that, and just they enjoyed the sessions, which is always nice. And you know, I think they've always been pretty relaxed to work with, actually. I mean, Tuomas is very much in control. You know, he knows what he wants. He's always very open to collaborate, to ideas, and but you know, he knows his music, he knows his stuff, and he knows what he likes and what he doesn't, and that makes sort of perfect collaborator, really.
Exactly. And your first record with them was once the most powerful album according to fans. But I have a more personal question, and I mean, I have a specific reason for that. Because the upcoming projects with Nightwish listed are Dark Passion Play in 2007, Imaginarium in 2011, and Imaginarium the Score in 2012. However, there was a significant series of events that occurred between 2004 and 2007. I'm confident that you know what I'm referring to. Have you ever perceived any change between Once and Dark Passion Play following Tarja's departure? Like, the latter album feels quite different from the former. Yes. I am referring to is the difference in the orchestration, music, and atmosphere between Once and Dark Passion Play. I don't know, like, as fans, we have our own personal impressions, but we lack the perspective of musicians. While it's generally acknowledged that Dark Passion Play might be the heaviest album by Nightwish, and Imaginarium could be considered the most theatrical one, these observations might not fully capture the nuances. Could you provide some specific details to help clarify these changes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a change of lead vocalist with Annette taking over for Dark Passion Play, and actually I remember literally within the first few minutes of hearing her vocal at Abbey Road Studios, where we recorded that album, and commenting on the you know, the different vocal sound, and I liked it, actually. I thought Annette had a very nice voice. But I think Dark Passion Play, you know, it's simply a very different album to everything that we'd had before. in my opinion, it had different influences. I think it was more folky, more Celtic, Finnish, probably as well. And it definitely had a sort of more contemporary metal sound to the early albums. But all of this would come from Tuomas. He's an artist, and artists don't want to repeat themselves. We're all looking for new ideas, new colors, new ways of saying something. I mean, certainly as the conductor of that album, I didn't think, oh, this doesn't sound like Nightwish, or this sounds, it just sounded like their new album, their new material, their new ideas. I tend to see things as, each album is its own entity. It's its own sound world. And I think these things are always open to very personal interpretation. Some would say Dark Passion Play is a heavy album compared to everything before it, but I think there's some pretty heavy tracks on Once. So like Dark Chest of Wonders, I think is quite a heavy track. So it's all very subjective, really. I think from my perspective as a musician, what I'm hearing in Dark Passion Play is that Tuomas is becoming probably more interested in the orchestra and choir elements, more confident in using these elements within his songs, and with each subsequent album, apart from one exception. But you can hear that he's sort of wanting to explore different sound worlds. The arrangements are becoming more and more important to him, and the sound and production too. So I can hear that. I can hear the start of that in The Poet and the Pendulum, as an example. So yeah, I think it's just what we're hearing is a natural progression of an artist.
Okay. Now, have you ever had the opportunity to work with Tarja directly, or Annette, for example?
Not directly, no.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, I've never met I don't think I've ever met any of the lead vocalists. I don't think they've ever turned up to the recording sessions.
Okay, because in 2012 there was another lineup change with Floor Jansen joining the band, and the next project listed for Nightwish is Endless Forms Most Beautiful, which was the last album to feature orchestral arrangements. And this album features notable tracks such as Shadow Before the Beautiful, Yours is an Empty Hope, and two very special pieces, The Eyes of Sharbat Gula and the most ambitious track, The Greatest Show on Earth. And this album was the first to feature Floor Jansen on vocals and Troy Donaghy as a full-time member, contributing his distinctive instruments. And I would like to pause here, as there are many rumors circulating. Some people claim that Nightwish has lost some of its power over the years due to Troy Donaghy's involvement and contributions. While Troy, known for his folk influences, which I personally admire, has been a significant addition. And there are opinions suggesting that despite the extensive orchestral arrangements on Endless Forms Most Beautiful, it doesn't feel like a quintessential Nightwish album. What are your thoughts on this perspective? Because while tracks like Elan and Idima Ru have a somewhat lighter sound, the rest of the album remains quite powerful. I mean, as fans, we lack the clinical perspective and are not involved in the songwriting process, so we don't have insight into what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think Floor and Troy are fantastic additions to Nightwish. Floor, she has a powerhouse voice. She's a really gifted singer, and she has lots of color in her voice. And the thing is, when you bring in new members into your band, of course they influence the sound to some degree. Floor, for instance, she's got this incredible range. She has a great chest voice with a really strong low range, and then she has this amazing soprano voice. And when you're a singer like that, you know, you use that range, and you can, sorry, when you're a composer, you use that voice, and you consider it when you're writing. You know, you might think, you might extend the top range of a song. You might extend the melody slightly because you have this amazing singer. So that's, you know, that's a positive influence, I think, for any composer. And Troy equally, you know, I think he's a fantastic musician. He's a multi-instrumentalist and comes with a whole new palette of different sound for Tuomas to use. And who wouldn't want to use that in your writing? So yes, you could say Tuomas is influenced by these different talents, but I think it's in a good, positive way. Also, I would add, most importantly, that Tuomas knows what he's doing. He has real conviction in his music and concepts. So I can't personally imagine anyone convincing him of trying anything he didn't really feel was appropriate for the song. I mean, certainly when I was working on the arrangements for Yesterwynde, you know, most of the time he absolutely loved what I was doing. I would give him these little sort of demos of the orchestral of the orchestrations that I'd worked on for him. And yeah, most of the time he loved what I did, but occasionally he would say, you know what, those woodwinds parts you've added on that second verse, I just don't think we need those. Let's get rid of those. So, you know, he's very much in control of his music. He knows what he likes and what he wants. So like I said earlier, you know, he's an artist, and artists are always looking for new things. He doesn't want to go and write another version of an earlier album. There's just no point in that. And actually the fans, although sometimes they imply they'd like that, if you gave it to them, they would say, oh, well, this is boring, and it just it's just another take on you know, album number one. So as for it not sounding quintessentially Nightwish, I would be more inclined to say, you know, think of it as another entity with a different sound world to the previous albums. I mean, I think with Endless Forms Most Beautiful, what you're hearing is definitely a more sophisticated approach to songwriting, arrangement, and production. You know, the tunes, all the Nightwish stuff is all there, but I think with age, maturity, and experience in both life and music, the ideas and concepts become more sophisticated with more detail, and things are. At that point on that album, I would say things are starting to become less instant. You know, there's more depth, and there's more detail to enjoy.
Yes, and in fact, the greatest show on earth initially was 45 minutes long. Then it had to be cut into 24 minutes. Yeah. I don't know, it was for some reason that I still can't recognize. But I know that that was something that really happened behind the scenes. And the next album, Human Nature, represents a significant shift. Like it's the first album without orchestral arrangements, featuring only a few strings here and there. And however, with the upcoming album, Yesterwynde, we are returning to a full orchestral approach. And this marks a significant shift for you as well, as it is the first album without Pete Williams, with you taking on a little role on in this endeavor. But before we delve into the details of the upcoming album, I would like to ask you how you feel about working with Tuomas Holopainen after all these years as one of the most influential songwriters of all time. His impact is very well recognized, and having been a collaborator with him, how would you describe your relationship with him and with the rest of the band?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I met him originally back in 2003. And really, he's still very much the same as he was then. He's very unassuming. He's a very gentle soul, very considerate, hardworking, very serious about his music and life. And he's a very good collaborator, because I think the success of many things in the industry, whether it be in film music or with pop music, collaboration is a really important part, and not everyone can collaborate. And he's very generous, he's very open to ideas. He's very respectful. I mean, he gave me a sort of lots of scope to do what I wanted to try with Yesterwynde. And sometimes, most of the time actually, to be fair, he absolutely loved it, and then sometimes it was like, maybe let's very diplomatically, let's get rid of that idea or whatever. But he was he's a gentle, very gentle person, and a very nice human being. And that's why I suppose I'm still here, all these years later, working with them. The rest of the band, I mean, they've changed over the years, obviously new personnel, but Troy I've got to know very well, and he's terrific fun. I like Troy very much. And I think he's a good influence actually on Nightwish, in terms of what he brings to Nightwish. My goodness, he can play all these lovely whistles and pipes, and sings and plays guitars. He's a very talented musician. And like I say, it's also good fun to have around. Who else? Kiro, Kai, Yuka. I mean, they were all at the sessions for Yesterwynde up at Abbey Road back in October. And they're all just nice, great people, and like I say, very respectful. And I think it was something new for them actually to come along to these orchestral sessions and hear these parts suddenly come to life, because they'd had my demos and they'd heard Tuomas's demos, and Tuomas presents to me his idea of the arrangement, which has all the sort of core musical ideas and riffs. I don't have to sort of come up with anything like that. He tends to do everything on string parts. Then he hands that to me, and it's down to me then to, after discussion with him, to start thinking, okay, well, that section there that you've just got this string idea, that could be a full-blown orchestral moment at that point. That needs to be massive, and sort of slowly work through the arrangements like that. I'm going off a bit here, aren't I? Onto the onto the arrangement.
No,
as people, they're really delightful to be around, and good fun.
I was trying to remember if you've ever had the opportunity to meet, I don't know, one of the singers of the band, and the making of episodes for Endless Forms Most Beautiful came to my mind immediately. And I remember one episode where Flor was part of the recording sessions for the orchestra, but I don't know if you've ever been there.
If it was in London, I would have definitely been conducting. Then, goodness, so that was quite a while ago. Wow. Well, yes.
Yeah, we're talking about maybe 9 years ago or something like that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, I've forgotten about that, but yes. I mean, the thing is, I'm doing this every day, sort of more or less, and working with different film scores, so it's difficult to recall everything. But
yes, I guess Flor was maybe the first singer in being there in London for the recording sessions for the orchestra.
Yeah. I mean, I love her voice. I think she's probably my favorite out of all, three of the singers. I probably shouldn't say that, but
that's why we are here.
But she is a fabulous singer, and it's a really gifted natural voice. I mean, it's been trained. I don't know that for sure, but I'd be very surprised if that's not a really very well trained voice. You're a singer. You can probably hear it. Technically, it's absolutely, up there. It's fabulous.
Exactly. I love analyzing people's voice. I love doing that. But now it's time to discuss this new Nightwish album, which is coming really, really soon. We are talking about 9 days from today, Yesterwynde, with another lineup change. I imagine the album has a distinct sound compared to the previous ones. How would you describe this new album? Like, I'm interested in your insights on various aspects, such as the music, vocals, drums, keyboards, guitars, bass, and orchestration. And we've already heard 3 singles: Perfume of the Timeless, The Day Of, An Ocean of Strange Islands, and now we have one more coming on September 20th called Lantern Light. The first 2 singles are quite distinct from one another, and An Ocean of Strange Islands suggests an even more powerful direction. Although a couple of reviews have surfaced, much of the album remains a mystery. Would you be willing to share any details or insights about what went on behind the scenes? Like, what can we anticipate from this new musical adventure? Could you provide a general overview of the album?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think Yesterwynde is probably the most varied album to come from Tuomas and Nightwish. It's the album that literally has something for everyone. I think I sort of said that some time ago on a Facebook post. I mean, the 4 tracks you've just mentioned are all really different, and the whole album's like that. I mean, I remember listening to Tuomas's demos for the first time and thinking everything sounded very polished. The songs themselves and the whole production. It's like he's taken everything to the next level. I also personally feel that this album differs from all the other albums in that Tuomas seems to have given equal importance to all the different layers of sound. That from Floor's vocal right down to the bass guitar, everyone is sort of part of the composition and can be heard. The orchestra, the band, everyone. There's just more detail and interest in everything. That's probably subjective and personal, but that's what I hear. I mean, if you really hone into Ocean of Strange Islands, for instance, there's lots going on. There's so much detail in that song. The orchestra alone is full of musical details, and the whole song is shifting in different new directions all the way through. It's a really great song. I enjoyed orchestrating that one. And then Lantern Light, for instance, that's a really beautiful song, and probably my favorite slow tempo song on the album. I mean, when I started to work on the album, I had my own sort of idea about what I felt I'd like to bring to the arrangements that Tuomas had originally demoed. And we talked through every song in great detail on what we feel, the orchestra what he wanted the orchestra to do, what he demonstrated, and what he wanted me to then sort of add and elevate it, how he wanted me to do that. So everything was sort of discussed in great detail. And that's really what this album is about. I think it's just, there's lots in it. There's loads to listen to. And hopefully people will really hone into those tracks and appreciate the detail. I think from my personal point of view as an arranger, I don't know if I would, I'm never conscious about, people use the word cinematic. I never consciously thought, I'd like the arrangements to be more cinematic. I think because I'm from the world of film, that's naturally in what I do anyway. And actually, Tuomas loves film music as well. So I think subconsciously that's also in what he does. So that's always there. But from my personal perspective, I just wanted the arrangements to be a slightly more contemporary, the orchestral arrangements, that is. So I did that really through adding dissonance. I suppose the easiest way to describe that to non-musicians is it's just about adding things that sort of go off slightly, but in a cool, good way, you know, and it just instantly makes things sound more contemporary, I suppose. It gives things a sort of edge and a slight darkness. So that's it's always a nice technique. So I did that wherever I could. But yeah, I mean, Pip's a wonderful arranger, and he had big shoes to fill. You know, I was slightly nervous when I got asked to do the arrangements with Tuomas. I just, there was a voice in my head while I was working on things that sort of said, "Oh my God, what if the fans say, you know, James Shearman has totally messed this album up?" But you know, you have to. For me, it was just about doing the best possible jobs that I could and creating something that was just a slightly different from what Pip had previously done. And like I say, that was really about just making things sound as contemporary as I could get them.
Now I want you to pick your 3 favorite tracks for this album.
Oh, okay. Well, Lantern Light would be one, in no particular order. Lantern Light is a really beautiful ballad. In fact, the first time I heard Tuomas's demo, the hairs on my arms stood up. I thought that was just amazing. And a song like that actually doesn't require very much from an arranger or an orchestrator. That was an easy one to do because it's such a strong song. And actually, An Ocean of Strange Islands I love because that was great fun to work on, and I love the way that it sort of just keeps changing, and it's got a great energy about it. What else? The Antikythera Mechanism, that's also a favorite. You've got that coming up to look forward to. That's got one of the big sort of orchestral arrangements within it. That's a great song. I think, you know, die-hard Nightwish fans are going to love that. How many? That's 3. The fourth one. There is this, not the day of. Goodness. Let me think.
I read somewhere that The Weave was one of your favorites too.
Oh yes, the weave, of course. Yes. Now the weave, again, the sort of die-hard Nightwish fans are going to love that. It's kind of a traditional, what I would class as a traditional Nightwish song, but it's just updated. It's, again, he's taking it to the next level. It's got great playing from the band for a start. It's got a wonderful top line from Floor, and the orchestra. It's really high energy, great stuff. Yeah, that's definitely a favorite. And there's all sorts of, again, talking about, I keep going back to about details and interest. You know, that's what this album's about. There's lots to listen to, lots to really hone into. This album is not a sort of you know, rock band with a singer singing a melody over the top. Do you know what I mean? It's everyone's got equal importance. I mean, I've read lots of bands' remarks about the mixes and the fact that Floor is quite low in the mix. But I think that's simply because this is a conceptual thing, and it's about not having one element, you know, sort of dominating everything all the way through. You know, there are times when that's happening, but other times it's much more about a texture, you know, an overall sort of texture, rather than just a soloist.
Thank you
singing
for
something.
thank you for making this clear, because a lot of people is talking about Floor's voice, talking about the mix, and everybody's saying that Floor's voice is very low in the mix, and I think that people need to understand what is happening and why this is happening.
Yes.
So thank you for making this clear, because I think it was already time for someone to talk about this and really talk about the details and saying this, because I don't know, I've been reading so much hate on social media. I mean, Perfumer of the Timeless was the first one. Everybody was like, I don't know, I can hear Floor's voice in the chorus. And then we have the day off, and they were talking like, oh, this is a more simple song. This is not Nightwish. Then we have An Ocean of Strange Island, and they are again talking about Floor's voice, like, oh, I can't hear her voice in the mix. And come on, just stop. You need to listen. I mean, there's an Atmos version of this album, of course. I had the pleasure to listen to Perfume of the Timeless in its Atmos version, which sounds completely different. Like Floor is very in the front of the song. Like her vocals are very high, but this is just an effect. Like this is just another mix, different kind of mix. And so thank you for making this clear for everybody. I hope this makes people stop talking about this once and for all, please.
Well, it goes back to that thing I said earlier about treating every album as its own entity, as a new thing, and not thinking, oh, well, on the last one, you know, it's a new concept, it's a new idea, and that's the way I think we have to approach things.
Well, so I can't wait for the album to come out, and especially the Atmos version. I want to listen to every detail. I'm still, I don't know, I took An Ocean of Strange Islands, and I gave it a few shots now, like maybe 10 times or something like that. And I'm still discovering new things into the song.
Exactly.
Like it has a lot of information. And for what I know, I don't know, this song had at least 600 tracks or something like that before the mixing. And I read somewhere that for the mixing engineer, this was a total nightmare, like trying to mix
all
these songs.
Absolutely, these, you know, these songs they take amazing engineers, you know, that they are very, very difficult, because you've got lots of different elements, and lots of those elements are in the same frequencies, so you need a really skilled engineer. I mean, I think he's done a fabulous job on this album. They are incredibly difficult albums to mix. Incredibly. I wouldn't even know where to start mixing an album like this.
Exactly. It must be different from movie scores, right?
Yes. Well, yes, it is. I mean, yes, it's definitely more difficult. I mean, for a start, you know, you have a vocal, a lead vocal, which traditionally takes up, you know, 60% of what you're hearing. And then you have a band, which takes up, you know, let's say 20 to 25%. And then you've got this tiny little amount left, maybe 30, you've got this tiny amount left to fit in an orchestra and choir. You know, it's just, I don't know how those guys get their heads around this stuff. It's just very, very difficult.
Yes.
But I think I think the whole production it sounds amazing. You know, it's got a nice polish to it, a nice contemporary sound. They've definitely, everyone's sort of up their game, I think.
I can remember that with the greatest show on earth, we've had at least 200 tracks coming from the orchestra only.
Yes.
And
yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
yeah,
It is a lot of information. So, well, that's it for today. I want to thank you again for being here. It was a real pleasure for me. And I really can't wait to hear what you've been working on all this time, preparing this beautiful masterpiece that I am sure we are going to feel like very pleased with this album. And An Ocean of Strange Islands is the proof.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I hope the fans enjoy it as well. And it was fantastic to be part of this album. I loved every minute of it, and yeah, I hope you all enjoy it.
Hopefully, and I'm very happy to give you this space. I know that orchestrators and I don't know, conductors are not doing interviews very often, like something like this. And like I really wanted to give you this space because I think that you deserve it because of your great job and because of your passion and your hard work. So you deserve to be part of this too. This is a trilogy, the first trilogy, and we don't know if this is going to be the last one. But for instance, it is a special moment for the fans, for the band, and of course for you too. And I really feel that you deserve to be part of this. So thank you so much
Thank you very much
for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, see you next time, hopefully very soon. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the rest of the tracks of the album.
Yes.
We have a lot of mystery going around. So, well, I'll be waiting for that moment. So thank you, James. Now I can let you go. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much. And you. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.